When you create a story about someone, how would you create it? If you had the power of being the author of someone's life, will you give that someone a happy story? Knowing of the power you have over someone's life, will their story end with a happy ending? My friends, welcome to the 24-Hour Diner. Introduction, Betty Monroe. Even though she may look like your average waitress at some random dine-in off the freeway, there's going to come a day when people are going to know about Betty Monroe. Just you wait. You'll see, when her stories hit the shelves and people are going to talk about her. You see, Betty here has a secret. She's a writer, a storyteller, and what people don't know is she likes to write stories about people in yellow legal pads. And one day, those stories are going to get published. Sometimes Betty writes stories about her ex-husband Bernard and her son Bernard Jr., who went off to college. That was the last time she's seen her son. In her story, she lives a happy life to keep herself going through the hard days. Betty Monroe is living a happy life, but most of her stories are about her customers, and it's important that her stories have a happy ending. You see, as a writer, Betty always gives a happy ending because she knows how to end her stories, which Betty believes that if you keep a story going long enough, they always end in death. You know, one day, they're going to ask how Betty Monroe knows so much about people. They're not going to believe that she was once a waitress. It'll be her little secret. This troubled girl you see, Judy, Betty already knows her story. Young, misguided, currently in a struggling relationship with another girl named Donna. Even though Betty wouldn't describe herself as someone who's small-minded, but what those girls do is a sin against God. It's unnatural, which is why in Betty's stories, she has them both married off to fine young men. That young man asking for another cup of coffee, that's Greg. Oh, no, wait, sorry, it's Mark. Mark here has a big interview today for a chemical company downtown. In Betty's story, he'll get the job and even marry the boss's daughter. The loving couple that just walked in, Kate and Gary Fletcher. It's sad to hear of a horrid rumor going around on how Gary married Kate for only the money. But Betty knew differently. She sees how the Fletchers doted on each other, like lovebirds. You take one away, and the other one hankers off and dies. Now Marcia's story, Betty already knows. You see, Betty and Marsh go way back. How she looked after Marsh since his wife Marcia died, drunk herself to death. Marsh and Marcia, obviously they were meant for each other. Sadly, after his wife's death, Marsh went crazy and ended up serving 5 years in prison for stealing mail. Now that he's out, Marsh is a trucker in some city. Usually every now and then, he would come to the diner and visit Betty for old time's sake. These people, Judy, Mark, Kate, Gary, and Marsh, these weren't just people. They were good people. For Betty, they were raw material. Even the little stranger who's been sitting quietly in the corner seat all morning, been sitting there before Betty came on shift, barely sipping his coffee, just watching everyone, observing the world around him, like he was in a world of his own. Betty wonders about him, maybe a storyteller himself. When things die down, Betty will talk to him, get to know him. Tonight, she'll write a story about him, and in Betty's story, she'll make him happy. She will give him a happy ending. We're all going to die. These beautiful little flies, ignorant pieces of flesh completely unaware of how they found themselves stumbling into the spider's web. These are friends. Dr. D's new friends. They are now his special meat puppets for him to play with. Looks like Mark is going to be late for that interview. He's starting to get concerned, confused with time. But there was no way Dr. D was willing to let his little fly get away. Maybe another cup of coffee should ease that nervousness. Yes, another cup of caffeine should make all the worries go away. At first, Dr. D never understood people's fascination over the misery of others. Was always curious how people were drawn to the senseless drama on the television. Today's pulse-churning episode of Secret Hearts. Oh no, looks like Mary married a dentist. But doctor, if my Siamese twin has HIV, doesn't that mean I have it too? I'm not just Crazy Kara. I'm Crazy Kara with a gun. Oh, and Dr. D's favorite soap opera. Judy wishing she was dead because of how Donna's mother disapproves their relationship. You know, there is something enlightening about watching other people's failures and misery. Dr. D enjoying Donna's tears. Doesn't her misery make someone's pathetic world feel much brighter? Wouldn't Judy and Donna's failure of a relationship make great material for ignorant bliss? Dino's KidVid Playhouse. Isn't it fascinating how kids these days are brought up as ignorant human beings who are oblivious to the horrors of the world because of shows like this? What would happen if Dino the dinosaur taught kids the true horrors of the world? Today's episode, kiddies, it's Terry Pteranodon's birthday. And what better way to celebrate a birthday than to teach the young viewers how to slash their wrists? That's right, kiddies. Dino the dinosaur has a very special message to share. We're all going to die. Now, time to slash the wrists. What you want to do is grab yourself a kitchen knife. Make sure you're not going across the wrist, but have the blade going down. Looks like Dino the dinosaur may have given the world its fill for misery and suffering. Oh, the darling flies are now getting restless, overwhelmed with the sense of confusion, and now questioning their sense of time and touch with reality. Realizing how no new customers have came in, and can't help but have this overwhelming feeling like they spent hours in this place, when it should be morning. It's funny when watching these flies go in circles. Dear Donna, I don't blame you for what you said about us last night. And I said I was sorry after I hit you. And I am sorry. Donna, I love you. I only hurt you because I was scared of losing you. I'm sorry. Well, looks like Mark have finally did it, my friends. He's now the executive director of that chemical company. The phone calls, the deals, and the money. Oh yes, Mark has made it big. All that money coming in. And not only that, he's also banging the former boss's daughter. Oh, looks like Gary's having the time of his life with a $20 hooker in that convertible he's been wanting. And when she's done, Gary will just beat her up and kick her out before driving off. Gary finds that so entertaining. Now Kate, it looks like she no longer has to worry about Gary fooling around with the other women. Yeah, she heard about Gary's history, found the porn stash, the rumors about her husband's activities at night. But you see, Kate no longer has to worry about her husband's infidelity, because Gary now belongs to her. Gary is all hers. Dr. D moving amongst the pleasure from his flies, his jewel whispering sweet pain and madness dwelling among the bliss. This excites him. He can feel their ecstasy. Betty's dreams of dislodging Stephen King from the bookshelves with their boring stories. Not sure what Kate is doing. The stimulation running through him when seeing Judy's reunion with Donna. And Marsh, who thinks he's dead. The man had drunk himself to hell. Look at his body, convinced that it's on the slab, his liver failing, the skin going cold and pale. This is beautiful. Now, according to the mind doctors at Arkham, It says that conflict is the best way to bring out someone's true character. Look at Marsh attacking Judy because of her sexuality. A man who finds Judy filthy for her actions. All she needs is a proper man in her life. A real man who knows how to give it to her. He'll fix her. He'll fix her up real good. Isn't it fascinating how humans can so easily turn against each other like this? How they put so much effort into going about their boring, mundane lives as normal people until you peel away that mask. So this is what it's like to be on top of the world, carried and praised by his beautiful meat puppets. Dr. D experiencing the very thing that so many people crave, to be noticed, to be loved, to be worshipped, to be God. Dr. D is now God, and Dr. D is hungry, and look how his sweet little flies are more than willing to surrender their flesh and blood for their beloved God. But Dr. D found the taste of flesh repulsive. Like a true God, he was not pleased with his little flies. So disappointing. Even though Dr. D enjoyed watching the workings of his dreamstone, him and his little flies watching the world descend into chaos, news reports of an unexplained crisis within the city. I think we all can agree, stone or no stone, the world is always in a crisis. The world is going to hell. We're all going to die. Now's the time for Dr. D's friends to know each other. Here's Kate and her inner demons. The most shameful thing she swore to never tell a single soul. When she was 18 and at college, there's a funeral home next door. And one day when Kate and her boyfriend had split, that day she was drunk, horny, and crazy. Kate does not want to share this story. Well, when she was out and had to go pee somewhere, that's how she ended up walking into the mortuary. And that's when Kate saw the body on the table. She could tell that he was once good looking. And the thing is, instead of being freaked out, Kate was excited. So she went over and started to play with it, got on top of it, and started to really go. And all of a sudden, that was when the blood welled up in his mouth, and that's when she went down. God, Kate really does not want to talk about this. Kate never told anyone this, never wanted to. But when she's making love to Gary, she would ask him to lie real still, so that she could close her eyes and pretend. It was never the same. It was never the same. Now that his little flies got to know each other's shameful and filthy little secrets, what better way into getting to know each other than to have them know each other intimately, to inflict their inner desires for carnal pleasure upon each other? It's been so many years since Dr. D dreamed. How long has it been since he ever saw a woman in that way? Watching this orgy, his little flies letting out that inner passion on each other, was quite a show. Let's see how Dr. D's future will go. Let's consult with the oracles. You come from dust, you walk the dust, and you go back to dust. Dr. D had stolen the power of dreams. He will take all of it, and he will crush all dreams. Dr. D had lost his dreams, and for that, he will destroy man's ability to dream. Everyone will die. Look at his little flies. These scared, helpless little flies that are just now realizing that they've been caught in the spider's web. You can practically smell the fear lingering in the air. Just for a while, Dr. D gave back their minds. He wanted his little meat puppets to have the full experience of what's happening. He wanted to hear their bargains, their demands to understand why he's doing this. Why, that's simple. Because he can. Let's dig deep into the minds of these flies. Let Dr. D find the root of the horrors that these little flies have kept hidden away. Let's see what they have been running away from all this time, their traumatic experience of the past. In the dark, there's so much wonderful games to play. In the dark, Dr. D's little insects can now enjoy those horrid moments once again. In the dark, one can play games with those who had ruined and damaged them. Who would ever want to read one of Betty's boring fairy tales when we can enjoy the real thing? So here's a story that will definitely put Stephen King to shame. Did you know that Marcia knew about her husband and Betty? Yeah, that was why she started drinking. But thing is, Marsh hated her. I mean, she was the only woman he truly loved. But God, did he hate her so much. So one day, Marsh blew a whole paycheck on a crate of vodka, left it in the bedroom, and decided to leave town for the weekend. And when Marsh got back, that was when he found out that his wife, Marcia, was at the hospital, where she died from alcohol poisoning. Want to know something else? When Marsh was in the pen, he met Bernie Jr., Betty's son. Been hustling his ass on the streets, then got picked up for knifing his pimp. You know, we all know that Betty doesn't want to hear this. But it's not like she has a choice, like the people in her stories. But did you know you could have your way with Bernard Jr. for a pack of cigarettes? And Marsh, well, he had his way with Bernard Jr. You know, if Betty ever wants to bring an end to this story, seeing how endings are very important, there's that meat cleaver on the counter. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity in its most authentic form. It's too bad Marsh won't get to enjoy the nature show, thanks to one of Betty's happy endings. You see, what's happening right now is that the young male is challenging the pack leader. Notice the females huddling in the corner for comfort, nervous over the conflict between both males. The young male, he must fight the pack leader. If he wins the fight, then the females will be all his. Is it not exciting when watching the two males go at it? Dr. D's sense of entertainment when watching them thrash and bite at each other. But it wasn't long before the pack leader showed his superiority, dominated the fight as his sharp teeth dug into the young man's throat, tearing away the strips of flesh from his prey, his mouth caked with blood, howling in victory. These little insects, Dr. D's special little flies. Look how vulnerable and easy it is to tell them a lie. How humans love to be lied to. So, to prove that it was safe, I'll have the green side, and you can have the red half of the apple. And trusting the wicked queen, Snow White took a bite from the rosy apple and instantly fell down as if she were dead. But don't worry, Snow White isn't really dead. She gets a happy ending, just like his special little flies. What better way to bring entertainment on this night than to spread a little happiness? Even though things kinda got gloomy when Betty was writing another one of her stories about Gary, Mark, and whatever's left of Marsh with that meat cleaver, why not cheer out the place by spreading a little happiness? Now 'tis the moment for the flies to see the way, to be free from the horrors of this world. All they have to do is offer themselves to Dr. D, so that he can show them the true face of glory. Yes, as promised, these little insects can now enjoy their happy ending, experiencing that blissful happiness as the meat puppets begin spilling the blood and shedding away their flesh. Dr. D, noticing the plate of half-eaten eggs, bacon, and a biscuit. Looks like someone didn't finish their breakfast. With so much entertainment, Dr. D had forgotten how hungry he was. Here's another happy ending for you. So after that large pig named Uncle won first prize at the fair, did you know that Wilbur didn't win any money? Nor did he win a medal? Fact is, nobody cared about Wilbur, nor those strange webs that followed him. Truth is, Charlotte's love and effort to save Wilbur was all for nothing. That winter, Wilbur ended up in the smokehouse. And little Fern, who was so distraught, she ended up running away. The sounds of Wilbur's high-pitched screams haunting her dreams at night. Winter will never be the same for her again, and Dr. D eating this strip of cold bacon. It's been nearly 30 years since Dr. D had tasted the salty, greased strip of pig flesh. A happy ending. I guess Charlotte was right. Wilbur was radiant, humble, and terrific. Dr. D could taste it. So this is what fear is. This is what people fear. They fear knowing. Imagine if one day the world woke up knowing that the good we see in people, trusted friends, loved ones, even family is but an illusion, silly fables people tell themselves so that they can get through their boring, miserable days without screaming too much. Can you imagine seeing past this good and experience the horror of living in the world full of pedophiles, thieves, scoundrels, gluttons, murderers, rapists, bullies, and incompetent morons? How you're deprived from that blissful ignorance we call happiness and must learn to live in the world of hurt that's full of ignorant human beings. The enjoyment of watching you weep when facing this reality, being filled with sadness and immense hatred, and that the only comfort you have is the dreams of wanting to see this filthy planet burn to the ground. Oh look, another fly that got caught in Dr. D's web. We are all going to die. Till this day, people never knew what happened at the 24-hour diner. What authorities called a suicide murder between 6 people, one of the many violent and grisly incidents that happened throughout the city that day, Dr. D was never found at the diner, nor connected with the events. Fact is, nobody will ever know that a man named Jonathan D was responsible for the deaths of those people at the diner. For so many years, nobody ever cared for his story. The man who was practically non-existing in this world because of how he was kept locked hidden away like a shameful secret. A man whose mind was warped because of the years without sleep or the experience of a dream. But it's believed that on the 24th hour that day, a greater power had taken notice of Jonathan D and the atrocities he had just committed, with a power that was never meant to fall in the hands of man, and this being unraveling the sadistic rage, the cruelty, and the hurt within John D. One could see how he was just a man who only wanted to dream of making the world a better and happier place, a world where he no longer has to feel hurt or sad. The thing about stories is that they will never go your way, but supposedly it is important to make sure that they end with a happy ending, because if you keep the story going long enough, that story will eventually end in death. On the 24th hour, Jonathan D was found in a cell at Arkham. Even though he was found asleep without dreaming, you could tell that his sleep was sound and peaceful.